honey. I'll do that. All right. Let's get started. Okay. So can everyone see my screen, Intro to Energy Medicine?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we're just going to jump right in. We usually do our introductions and we've already gone through that. So let's go ahead and begin. So let's just start with a definition. So what is energy medicine? You've probably heard the term thrown around and out in your circles, but let's go ahead. I'm just trying to, it's part of it is blocked off by, let me see if I can close this a little bit. Nope. Just a second. Let me get back.
Can you make it present view?
I'm sorry. I'm going to get there. Yeah, that's not working. I'm going to stop sharing and go back. Just one second. Okay. There's still part of this, the right side is blocked off for me, but I think I'll get most of it. So what is energy medicine? It's a word that was coined by three researchers who gathered in Boulder, Colorado in the late 1980s. It's defined as any energetic or informational interaction with the biological system to bring back homeostasis in the organism. So we're just trying to bring everything. I know a lot of times, so holistic means that we're looking at the entire system rather than working on one part of the system. Like we're not just looking at your knee hurts. Let's look at the whole system to see what's causing that pain with your knee and bring everything back into balance. All right. So, meanwhile, in the late 1990s, the National Institutes of Health, which is the official arm of the US health policy and implementation, they define some areas within complementary and alternative medicine. You've probably heard of CAM through 5 subdivisions. So, these subdivisions are mind body medicine, biologically based practices, energy medicine, that's where we are, number 3, manipulative and body-based practices, and then your whole medical systems, which are things like traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurveda that comes out of India. So at the core of each of these defined health and wellness practices is a concept of subtle energy, which seems to sustain and promote life processes in the biological system. So what is subtle energy? That's at the core of energy medicine. So, a simple definition would be the life giving force that animates us. Various cultures have named this life giving force chi or prana, ki, mana, or spirit. You've probably heard those names as well. And this subtle energy, it's not physical, but it is definitely a part of who we are. Subtle energy cannot be seen, but it does exist. For example, I love this example. If a surgeon were to cut into your brain, she would not be able to find or see your thoughts, dreams, hopes, emotions, or goals. Well, we know that they exist, obviously. If a surgeon were to cut into your heart, he would not be able to see the love you feel and possess, but it's a part of who we are. All of these things are obviously a part of your existence, but not in a tangible or physical way. So now we like to do a subtle energy demonstration, and this is going to be our first time trying it virtually. So subtle energy, we use this energy stick here, and I'll show you a video showing it, but subtle energy does run through our bodies in circuits. So by holding both ends of this energy stick, we're able to close the circuit. And a circuit is a closed loop that the electrons can travel in. So this demonstration is a visual way to show the subtle energy that is running through our bodies, and it shows that there is energy running through our bodies. So I'll just do it quickly just by myself here. I'm going to hold both ends and I'll close the circuit. And then that's what produces the sound. And it's not just for one person, but it can show that the energy is running through multiple people as well. So Pam, she was holding a sound and vibration therapy class, and I was able to stop in and record a video of her demonstrating this with everyone. So let me get to this first video. Just a second. Okay, could everybody see that?
No,
Okay. All right, let me see. It says I'm screen sharing, and it's on my screen, so I don't know why it's not showing.
it's showing the presentation, so that's front and center. So then the video must be hidden behind your presentation.
Okay. How's that?
No,
I think there's a difference between sharing your window and sharing your computer. So if you were just sharing the window of your presentation, if you switch window, it's not going to share. So I think you have to unshare and reshare, like stop
Okay.
sharing and start sharing again.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Sorry, my cat wanted to escape.
Uh-huh. How's this? Is it there?
Yay! Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to let this play a few times. It's really brief.
And we don't have volume.
Okay, I've got my volume on 100. Not working.
No.
Could you
When you
hear it
use
at
the Zoom,
all?
you got to be able to share sound too, believe it or not. That might be the issue. I'm not quite sure either.
Yes. All right. I don't see it under audio. I don't see anywhere to switch it.
Well, if you want to just talk us through it, I guess, at this point.
Okay. Yeah, so a lot of times we have everybody stand in a circle and everybody holds hands. And when everybody closes the circuit, then it will create the sound in the energy stick. And you can break that circuit anywhere. We'll have people on the other side of the circle, let go of each other's hands and the sound will stop. You can do that anywhere because it's letting that energy flow through the entire circle of people. And anywhere that you break that connection, then it's going to make, the sound will stop. But once you connect again, then it starts again. So it's just a nice little visual of letting everybody see and hear the energy running through. All right, so I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to stop my share, start a share. All right, are we back?
Yes.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience. I will work on making that a smooth transition. All right. So, sometimes we feel like this, doing these subtle energy tests are a little unfamiliar, but yet Western medicine does recognize that we have energy and electricity running through our body. So we are familiar with the machines and tests used by medical doctors, which measure the energy running through our bodies. We're all familiar with an electrocardiogram, the ECG. This records the electrical activity of the heart. And then the electroencephalography, the EEG, records the electrical activity generated by the brain. And then electromyography, the EMG, evaluates and records electrical activity produced by skeletal muscles. So, medicine does know that these exist, and they use these tests every day. You've probably even been a part of some of these tests. So the tests just mentioned work with the veritable energy, which is energy that can currently be measured. And then energy medicine typically works with putative energy, which is the energy running through and around our bodies, which cannot be measured with our current Western technology. There are some devices in the energy medicine arena that can measure this energy on that more subtle level. So veritable means it can be measured. Putative means it cannot be measured by those machines. Energy medicine practitioners work with the subtle energy we just experienced with the energy stick. And the people who work in the energy medicine field can have many different titles and designations depending on their training and expertise. Some of the titles include a craniosacral therapist, reflexologist, acupuncturist, a Reiki master, therapeutic touch certified, healing touch certified, Polarity practitioner, full spectrum energy healer, sound and vibration therapist, and many more. Anybody who's working with that subtle energy that's running through and around the body can be considered an energy medicine practitioner. All right. Pam, would you like to do a few slides? I'll
Sure.
throw it to you.
So practitioners and professionals who work in the energy medicine field work with the subtle energy, which is flowing through and around the body. They start with the foundational knowledge that are blocked in this subtle energy, and it can result in acute illness or chronic illness. Disease in the system, which leads to dis-ease in the system, which leads to disease. Any health challenge in any area of life, including the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual components of the client. Releasing the blockages in the subtle energy circuit and restoring balance creates an atmosphere for health and wellness. So if you look at these charts, this is an example of when energy is flowing freely. So there's really not, I'm looking at the normal muscular fibers and you're not really seeing blockages. This is an ideal body. You're not really seeing any blockages that are coming up in the body because it's been released or it hasn't been stored. If you look at the other picture, it's showing some energy currents that are coming from the fingers, going up toward the head and coming through the center of the body, going out through the feet. So that's showing examples of energy flowing freely. If you look at this example, the man on the right, well, it's my right, and then the face, you're seeing darker sections on that body, and that's where blockages can occur. How do blockages happen? Daily life, it's stress, it's, maybe eating the wrong foods. It can be just daily things that happen to us in our body can cause these blockages. It can, be anything really, and we can't necessarily stop it, but we can do something to allow it to move through the body and not stay in the body. So before we dive into the unseen subtle energy, let's look at the brief overview of what we can see in our systems. So we do have a physical body systems that will give us a beginning point of reference. So in Western medicine, the physical body talks about all these 12 systems in the body. We know about the digestive or excretory system. There's the muscular system, the skin system or integumentary system. You have your immune or lymphatic system. You have your endocrine system, your nervous system. We have a skeletal system. We have a reproductive system, which is divided into the male and female. We also have our respiratory, our breathing system, our renal and urinary system, and then we have our circular and cardiovascular system. So physical systems and subtle energy systems. Just like our physical bodies have systems in place to regulate and maintain life, our emotional, mental, spiritual, and energetic bodies have systems in place as well. Subtle energy is organized into systems and patterns within and around our body. They are not chaotic. We will now begin to look at some of the major systems as described in the theories and principles of polarity therapy. And we'll talk about what polarity therapy is a little bit later. So we have three main energy currents in our body. And if you look at number one, that's long lines. That is that first picture. And if you can see, it says it's water principle. That was the picture I talked about when we were talking about blockages in the body. You can see that the lines are coming from the fingers, going up to the crown of the head, down through the center of the body and out the feet. So the long line currents regulate and monitor the physiology of the body. That is related to what we call the water principle. Then the transverse currents is the middle picture, and that is related to the air principle. And these are kind of just combining and circulating around the body, and they control intercommunication and binding. These are called the transverse currents, and they are related to the air element. The spiral currents are governed by the distribution of the internal vital energy, and that starts at the umbilicus or the belly button and spirals out and around your body, and it is related to the fire element. So we've talked about this. Let's go a little bit more in depth. The long line currents, notice the 5 lines which are emanating from the fingers and the toes. These are all lined up to a chakra. So if you look at the picture, you're going to see different colors. And you can see, if you really kind of blew that up, you would see that the red color is going to come from the root chakra. The orange color is going to come from the sacral chakra, etc., all the way up to reach the crown. So when we work in polarity therapy, we're working on balancing those long line currents in the body. So what are chakras? The word chakra means spinning wheel. These spinning wheels are the main energy center of the body. These energy centers spin and move the energy currents in and around the body. There are 7 primary chakras, and their locations are: the crown is at the top of the head. The third eye is between the eyebrows. The throat chakra is in the middle of the throat. The heart chakra is the center of the chest. The solar plexus chakra is behind the navel region. The sacral chakra is about 3 inches below the navel, and the root chakra is at the base of the spine. So each of the 5 lower chakras are going to correspond to the 5 Ayurvedic elements: ether, air, fire, water, and earth. The throat chakra relates to the ether element. The heart chakra relates to the air element. The solar plexus chakra relates to the fire element. The sacral chakra relates to the water element, and the root chakra relates to the earth element. And you can see the picture a little bit below of the body where each of those would occur on the body. The chakra is the physical location of each energy center, but the corresponding element contains the qualities of each energy. So the chakra is the location, but the element of ether, air, fire, fire, water, and earth are going to talk about the qualities of that energy, and we're going to dive into that a little bit here. So here's the qualities of the earth element. And remember, that is that root chakra that is at the base of the spine. And it corresponds, like I said, the root chakra. This is where we get our survival, security, and stability. It's solid, strong, patient, and organized. This is where we battle between, we talked about that for those ladies that were in our Evolve meeting today. We talked about the fear element. So it governs fear and courage. And when it's imbalanced, we are grounded, stable, satisfied with life, and have abundant energy, and we're practical. When it's out of balance, we can be anxious, we can be lethargic, we can feel stuck, we can have fear of change, be paranoid, and we can have no boundaries, or maybe we're just defensive. And I think we kind of go in and out of, being balanced and not balanced based on what's going on in our day. But we don't want to stay out of balance. So the next chakra is the water element. And that is, like I said, a couple inches below your belly button. And it corresponds with the sacral chakra. And this is where we have authentic creation, soul fire, and it's also about our sexuality. It's flowing, merging, nurturing, and rhythmic. And this is talking about being attached and letting go. And when balanced, we are nurturing, receptive, generous, we have healthy boundaries, we have creative expression, and we're balanced sexually. When we're out of balance, we might be needy, we may have addictions, we might be possessive, we might lack emotions or be overly emotional, we could have compulsive behaviors, we could be hypersensitive, and we could either have a low or excessive sex drive. And then qualities of the fire element, it corresponds to the solar plexus chakra. The color is yellow. And this is where we get our power. And when I talk about power, I mean personal power in a positive way. And it talks about our self-worth, our self-confidence, and our self-esteem. This gives us clarity, focus, and action, and vitality. So if you can't get focused or you're not taking action on something, your fire element could be out of balance. It governs anger and forgiveness. When balanced, we are responsible, reliable, focused, enthusiastic, and able to make decisions. When we're out of balance, we might be angry at self, angry at others. We might lack clarity. We might be controlled by others. We might be unmotivated. We might have that feeling, I just need to be right. We could be self-centered. We could be controlling of others. And we might have rage and anger. And then we have our air element, and that corresponds with matters of the heart chakra. And that is about love, joy, inner peace. And it's lightness, it's quickness, agility, just all the things like air is light, quick, and agility and movement. And it governs greed. So there's feelings of greed and contentment. When balanced, we're compassionate. We are understanding. We have inner peace. We're loving of ourselves and we love others. And we're fair-minded and honest. When we're out of balance, we might feel depressed. We could feel lonely. We might feel antisocial. We might be jealous. We might be codependent. We might be impatient. We might be suspicious. We might move a lot, excessive movement. We might stay in abusive relationships. And then the qualities of the ether element, that's going to correspond with the throat chakra. This is about speaking your truth, the self-expression of feelings. It's about holding secrets, not so much that you are, keeping secrets in a bad way, but you're holding secrets in a way that if somebody confides in you, you're able to keep those secrets. It's also about communication. And the ether element is about space, stillness, silence, and neutrality. And it governs that balance between being joyful and having grief. When balanced, you're tranquil, neutral, you're a good listener, you communicate well, you you are meditative, and you are okay just being still. When out of balance, you might feel hopeless. You might have grief or sadness. You might feel worthless. You might feel closed-minded. You might feel like you're just a victim all the time. You might feel prideful in a negative way. You might be loud and dominating. You might have excessive talking, or just have the inability to listen. So just a review of what we talked about, because that was a lot of information. We have the long line currents, which are one of the three major currents in the body. And the long line currents correspond to the 5 chakras. The 5 chakras are part of the Ayurvedic 5 elements of ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And then before we explore how each element runs in the body, let's talk about polarity therapy. I talk about polarity therapy a lot, and so it's a hard one to just answer in a few sentences. So we're going to dive a little bit into this. Polarity therapy is a fully comprehensive energy medicine modality, which uses many techniques to influence energy flow and energy balance in the body. Polarity therapy practitioners believe that the energy imbalances, disturbances, or blockages result in disease and can be corrected. Dr. Randolph Stone was an osteopath, a chiropractor, and a naturopath, and he developed this form of alternative medicine in 1947. So why do we call it polarity therapy? Polarity therapy works on the poles of the body, which divide out into the positive poles. And if you look at this diagram, the positive poles are pink. The neutral poles, which is in yellow in this picture, and we're showing you where they are in the body. And then the negative poles, and negative doesn't mean bad, it's just positive. Opposite of positive is negative. And that negative charge is in green. These poles reflect throughout all sections and parts of the body. Any positive pole reflects to all other positive poles of the body. The same goes for neutral and negative poles. So the poles of the body are like a magnet or a battery. The energy in our body flows through the electromagnetic fields, which are created by those positive and negative poles. The space in between is neutral. So let's talk about how these elements run through the poles. As discussed previously, all subtle energy systems function in systems and patterns. These are specific patterns for each of the 5 elements. And these specific patterns run through the poles, positive, neutral, and negative of the body. And we call these patterns triads. So polarity therapy triads are track on the provided chart. So the earth triad is the neck is the positive pole, the bowels are the neutral pole, and the knees are the negative pole. So if somebody comes to us and they're saying their neck hurts, we're going to look at their earth element or any of the others. The water triad is related to the breast and heart, which is the positive pole. Generatives, which are your reproductive areas, that's your neutral pole, and the feet are your negative pole. And then the fire triad is the head is the positive pole, solar plexus, that's about where your belly button is, that's your neutral pole, and your thighs are the negative pole. And then our air triad, this is one that has 2. It's the only one that has 2. So it's shoulders, you have 2 shoulders. You have 2 kidneys. Oh, the shoulders are positive. You have 2 kidneys, which are your neutral poles. And then you have 2 ankles, which are the negative poles. The polarity triads also, we have the ether element, which doesn't have a defined triad. The ether element we're talking about, it's the space or the container that holds all other elements. And you must first have space for anything to be created. So if you're going to build a house, what's the first thing you're going to look for? You're going to look for a space to build that house. You must maintain space for anything to continue to exist. So polarity therapy triads, each triad must be connected in order for energy to flow freely and to create an atmosphere for health. So when the triad is not balanced, then that's when we can have disease. And, you know, our goal is to prevent disease. So energy medicine is recognized by the category within the Complementary and Alternative Medicine, which is CAM. It works with the subtle energy of the body with the goal to bring it to homeostasis, and that's just a word that means balance. It cannot be measured with our current technology. There are some things coming out now that are kind of proving that statement a little bit. We're finding that there are ways we can measure subtle energy, but mostly it's not measured. Where Western medicine measures the veritable energy in our bodies with equipment and tests such as the ECG, the EEGs, and the EMGs. Energy medicine practitioners and professionals start with the foundational knowledge that a blockage in the flow of subtle energy can result in acute illness, which is just something that kind of just came up, or chronic illness is something we've been dealing with for a while. And dis-ease or discomfort in the system can lead to disease. Any health challenge in any area of life, including the physical, the mental, and the emotional and spiritual components of the client. By releasing these blockages in the subtle energy circuits and restoring and balancing, it creates an atmosphere for health and wellness. Our physical bodies have ordered systems in place to regulate and maintain life. Our emotional, mental, spiritual, and energetic bodies have ordered systems in place as well. All right. So once again, the three main energy currents are the long lines, which we talk about how they emanate from the fingers to the crown, out through the feet and back on. Transverse, that one goes with the water element. And then we have the transverse current, which is flowing all around the body. That goes with the air element. And then the spiral current, which is going from the center of the umbilicus or the belly button, it is with the fire element. Long lines currents are one of the three major currents of the body. The long line currents correspond to the lower 5 chakras. Chakras are the main energy centers of the body and are defined as spinning wheels. Chakras spin and move the energy currents in and around the body. The 5 lower chakras correspond to the Ayurvedic 5 elements of ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And then each of the lower 5 chakras correspond to one of the 5 Ayurvedic elements of ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Remember that throat chakra, that's that ether element. The heart chakra is the air element. The solar plexus chakra is the fire element. The sacral chakra is the water element, with the root chakra being the earth element. Remember that the chakra is the physical part of the location. And then all of those qualities that we talked about with each element, remember that is where that type of energy, it's the element that contains the quality of each type of energy. So each of the 5 elements possess their own unique qualities. Talking about that earth element, that's survival, security, stability. It involves safety. That water element, that's authentic creation. It's the soul fire and its sexuality. That fire element is that self-power, that self-worth, that self-confidence and self-esteem. And the air element is about love, joy, and inner peace. And that ether element is speaking your truth, self-expression of feelings, being able to keep secrets, and communication. So polarity therapy works with the poles of the body. Remember, we talked about the positive poles, which are in pink in that diagram, the neutral poles, which are in yellow in that diagram, and the negative charge or negative poles, which are green in that picture. These elements run through the poles in triads, and the triads must be connected in order for the energy to flow properly. So the earth triad, we talked about that being the neck, which is positive, the bows, which are neutral, and the knees, which are the negative pole. And in the water triad, it's the heart or breast area, generatives, which are your reproductive areas, which heart is the positive, generatives are neutral, and your feet are the negative pole. And then the fire triad again, we're going to talk about that. Positive pole is the head, the solar plexus is the neutral pole, and the thighs are the negative pole. And in the air triad, the shoulders, remember we have two shoulders. We have two kidneys, shoulders are positive, kidneys are neutral, and we have two ankles, which are the negative poles. The ether element does not have a defined triad. It is the space or the container that holds all the other elements. You must have space first for anything else to be created. You must maintain space for anything else to continue to exist. So, what can we do with this information? Knowledge is power. We begin with learning all of the subtle energy systems in the body. We continue with knowing what we can do in order to release the blockages and restore the free flow of energy. Energy medicine practitioners and professionals educate and empower their clients to take their health in their own hands and participate in the healing process. So treatment and healing methods, you can do energy medicine body work, which a few of you have had me do, as a session. So we're balancing those triads. We're working on different, balancing the elements based on an intake that you give us. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. And then we have polarity therapy stretches and postures, which are very similar to like yoga poses. It's not really like, we call them exercises, but it's not like something that you're going to go out and, lift, 20 pounds. It's more of a stretch and a posture, like a yoga pose. And we talk about energetic food awareness. So we can also balance our bodies by eating the correct foods. If we're wanting to, be more grounded, we can eat things that are earthy foods. Those are foods that grow under the ground. The best earthy food would be like beets or carrots, but things that grow under the ground. And that can help balance our bodies as well by putting those kinds of foods in our body if we're feeling like our element is out of balance. And then the other pillar of polarity therapy is self-awareness, to talk about these things so that we can be smart about our health and find ways that we can balance our system without the use of pharmaceuticals or surgery. So I'm going to turn this over to Lucy. Do you mind?
That's good, sure.
Okay.
All right, so any questions so far before we dive into looking at a few examples? Any questions, thoughts on what you've just seen and heard? Everybody good? All right. So everything that Pam just presented, I want to try to bring this home so that you can understand it's a different way of looking at health. It's a different way of looking at yourself as a whole and complete person. And then rather than focusing on a diagnosis or something specific, we're able to work with the entire system to bring it back into balance. So let's start with this first example. This is an example of some physical issues. Maybe someone has digestive issues, ulcers, and headaches. These are common things that actually cluster together. Somebody might experience all three of these things together. I'm going to show you a chart that we use at the school and then as practitioners that helps us to be able to determine what might be going on with someone energetically to help bring that energy back into balance so that the digestive issues, ulcers, and headaches will go away. So this is called our 5-element chart, and there are 4 pages to it, but we'll look at 1 page at a time. So when somebody comes to a energy medicine practitioner and they're coming with these issues, we're going to look at this chart and we're going to see, and I want you guys to study this chart too. So see if you can see under that corresponding physical body systems and areas, which element digestive issues, ulcers, and headaches might fall under. And if you get the answer, go ahead and say it, unmute yourself and let us know what you're thinking.
Is everybody able to see it okay? I know it's a little tiny. Can you make it bigger? Is there any way you can pinch it and make it bigger?
Oops. How's that?
That's better.
Okay.
It's better.
Yeah, a lot of little words, right?
So what are we looking at? Digestive, ulcers, and what was the other one?
Headaches.
Headaches. And maybe focus on that last column.
Yes, look at the
We're looking at fire.
very good. Thank you. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to look at the fire element. Does anybody happen to remember what the fire triad was? I don't know if anybody was taking notes. The fire triad is the head is your positive pole, solar plexus for neutral pole, and thighs for positive pole. So when doing the body work, the practitioner is able to work on those 3 areas, connect the triad, that can help take care of these issues. Another way, what could be, we'll look at what some underlying causes of the issues might be. So if you look at this chart, this is another page of the chart. If you notice here, see at the top of the chart, it says it can be balanced, contracted. Contracted means they don't have enough of the element. Expanded means there's too much of the element. We're always trying to get everything back into that balance column. So if somebody's dealing with headaches and ulcers and digestive issues, they might be angry at themselves, unreliable, low self-esteem, having rage or anger at others, being overly aggressive, controlling, things like that. So those are some of the things we would look at with the client and talk about. Like when Pam said that this 4th pillar of the energy medicine is self-awareness. You know, a lot of people don't know how to make those connections, but once we start talking to them, then they'll start to seeing that, yeah, maybe my anger is causing some of these digestive issues or headaches. So we're able to help people make the connection that way. And then the foods, maybe they're not eating enough grains or legumes or spicy foods. This is anything that grows 2 to 6 feet above the ground. So we can ask them to start to consider some of these foods as well. So we're looking at those underlying causes of the issue. And things are usually going to go back to something that's emotional or stressful or, you know, possibly even back to a trauma or an accident, something like that. And then we look at what are some methods that can be used to release those blockages and bring the element back into balance. Here in the last column, we've got some polarity exercises and additional therapies that they can try. One's called the wood chopper. One is the breath of fire. Some of you may have done that if you do yoga. You may know the breath of fire. And these are just a few examples. There's so many different ways to bring it back into balance. And then maybe practicing Qigong or going to an infrared sauna that can help bring it back into balance. Some other methods that can be used to release the blockages and bring the element back into balance. Do you see here where the passion and virtue is anger and forgiveness? They might need to consider someone that they might need to forgive or a situation where forgiveness needs to be considered. that can help release blockages and help those symptoms disappear. And then a lot of times, we'll refer people out to talk therapy. Maybe somehow they need to find clarity and focus and find their self-worth and self-confidence and self-esteem. Some other things people can do is quote some affirmations. One example of an affirmation is, I am powerful, confident, and successful in all my ventures. And then just knowing that you have a right to act. The solar plexus chakra and the fire element, that's what that gives us here in this life, is you do have a right to act, and you don't have to be afraid to go through with your plans and act upon your dreams and plans. All right, before we go on to the next example, does that make sense to everybody? Do you have questions about that?
It makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Good. Good to know, because sometimes when it's the first time somebody's hearing this concept, it can be, difficult to grasp, and it's in my opinion, it's such a nice, and I would even say a better way of looking at things, to rather than having to tell somebody, give them a diagnosis of, you have an ulcer, you have, migraines, you have a chronic headache problem. We're able to say, these symptoms are telling us that your fire element is back into balance. Let's try these 2 or 3 things to bring that element back into balance, and then help that person to find health in that way. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you see the direct correlation? Because I wonder how they came up with the slide before that, you're talking about the food, like you're not eating enough grains, or I mean, how did anybody ever come up with that? Like how the correlation, how do you see the cause to effect? I guess that's my question.
Yes. So to go, back in history, so Dr. Stone, that Pam talked about, that developed polarity therapy, he ran a very successful practice in Chicago for 50 years, and his patients would just have to keep coming back to him week after week. He'd help them while they were there, and then they have to come back next week because the same issues are still there. So he really began a search, because he's like, there has to be something deeper than this. There has to be something more. And he literally traveled the world and studied. I mean, this all comes from ancient healthcare systems, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda in India. He went and visited tribes and indigenous people and different cultures around the world. And all of them had the same foundation in energy running through them, and back to those natural things like foods. So and he's not the only one, just by people studying these ancient traditions, they're able to come up with things like what we're seeing in this chart. And the foods actually energetically, everything energetic, everything in the universe has a frequency and a vibration. So when you look at earth foods that are growing underground, that is a slow, low vibration. And that's corresponding to your root chakra. That's giving you your foundation and your security and stability. And then as you go up the chakras and up the elements, that's why the foods are going up. Earth element foods grow under the ground. Orange, water element foods are growing 0 to 2 feet above the ground, and so on. So that's, one way that we're able to make that connection and see why it actually works. Did that answer that question?
Yeah, and actually, there's I'm linking this to something that happened to me is when you have a problem, like I had problems with my fingers, right? And it's like the surgeon, I went to see a hand surgeon, and I said, well, it's hurting further, there's other areas. Oh, but I just do the hand. If you want to address
Yes.
anything else, then go see a different specialist. And I'm like,
Yes.
nobody sees the overall body. Everybody looks at bits and pieces. And so do you guys work with like physical therapists? Because a physical therapist will help, do exercises. And when somebody has like a physical limitation or something, is that something you do? Because it's not just like balancing the energy too, right? There's other things that can come into play. Do you work in partnership with other, like, I'm
Yes.
thinking physical therapists, because these are really the only other people that address the whole body, right?
Right. So yes, we always encourage our students and practitioners to have a referral list and to get to know people in different areas that work in different areas in their area so they can refer their clients out if they need, additional help. Because yes, it's very important. We are still working with the physical body. It's very important that clients get what they need. So yes, you want to have connections to counselors and psychotherapists and psychiatrists and, PTs and LMTs and all of the above so that you can really make sure that your client gets everything that they need. Chiropractors, we need to be structurally aligned so that the energy can flow. Everything's important and everybody's going to need something different depending on what's going on with them. So thank you for that question. Yeah, we definitely, that brings me back to some people want to say that this is alternative medicine, and I'd rather call it integrative medicine because we do want to work alongside everyone else. It's not an either or. Let's use all the accesses, all the resources we have at our fingertips and get healthy and stay healthy.
Yeah, I like that. The more
Yeah,
comprehensive look at things. Yeah.
definitely. We need it all, right?
I just wanted to add that I had a client who reached out in between sessions and said, "Hey, I need this. This is what's going on." And her water element was out of balance. And I said to her, I said, um, "Can you eat more watermelon?" For some reason, watermelon was what I was thinking I should suggest to her. And she said to me, "I was at the grocery store and I thought about getting watermelon. And I only had so much cash on me, so I didn't buy it, but I'm going to go out and get watermelon." She thought about getting it. So it kind of comes back around, that sometimes, when you look at foods and like, yeah, I think I need this, maybe you follow that.
Absolutely. Your body will tell you what it needs if you'll, like slow down enough to listen to it, which can be difficult to do in our crazy busy lives. But yeah, if you give your body what it needs, it will heal itself. So that's a perfect example. Thanks, Pam. Any other questions before we look at the second example? Okay. So the first example was talking about some physical issues. In the second example, we're going to talk about some emotional and mental issues, which would be anxiety and a fear of change. So let's look at the chart and see which element the anxiety and a fear of change might fall under. And I'll zoom in a little bit, which might help give you the answer, but I have to zoom.
It's a little hard to read just because of the color background.
Yeah.
And you're looking at the second and third column, right?
Earth.
Yes. Earth. Thank you. Yes. And Pam, Pam talked about this a little bit about that fear, anxiety. How many people in our society are on anxiety meds? It's very prevalent in our society. We have a lot going on. The world is changing. There's a lot on in the world. There's a lot going on all the way down to our personal lives. So this is very, very prevalent for people to be very anxious. And then, and you can see the other things that kind of fall in with this too, but I will try to keep it to the anxiety and fear of change. So once again, we're going to start with that element. We're going to start with the earth element. What can we do to bring the earth element back into balance to help alleviate the anxiety and the fear of change? All right. So what could be some underlying causes of anxiety and a fear of change? Let's look at this column right here. Survival, security, and stability. Has anybody ever seen, is it Maslow's hierarchy of Yeah, and you've got that foundational where people have to have their basic needs met, that security and survival. If somebody doesn't have shelter and food, they can't get any higher in the pyramid because you have to have that security first. So that's kind of how we're looking at it here. We have to have our foundation of security and stability within the earth element to help everything else build and grow on that. And maybe everything's really unorganized. A lot of times people say, just go clean out a drawer. If you want to feel a little bit better, clean out a drawer, clean out a closet, do something that's going to help bring things back into organization and give you some more security and stability. I know it sounds like a small thing, but it can help. So some of the underlying causes could be that they don't have enough security or stability in their life. Maybe they've neglected their self. Maybe they're stuck in a pattern. Maybe they don't have any boundaries. All of these things can increase your anxiety and give you fear of change, paranoid worry.
And I think it's important to say that, it is natural and common to flow in and out of these areas of being contracted or expanded. What we don't want is to sit in that area of being out of balance for a long time. But it is
Correct.
normal to have rage and to have anger and to, feel a little bit overly emotional. We just don't want you to be doing that and sitting in that for long periods of time.
Right. And that's a good point because, if you look at this first column where everything's balanced, being a human, we're never going to live in this first column. We're constantly, like Pam said, going back and forth between that contracted and expanded, seeking that balance, seeking that homeostasis. It's just nice to have some tools to be able to know how to help bring some things back into balance. But yeah, don't think that you aren't going to experience a contracted and expanded because being human, that's just part of being human.
And it's a
Um,
self-awareness that you can say, hey, I'm feeling this. Okay, that's what this means now. What can I do about it in a healthy way?
exactly. Having the tools, I love it. So what are some things they could do to help bring the earth element back into balance that's going to alleviate that fear and anxiety, fear of change? Some exercises or polarity exercises are the squat. And this is when you're holding the squat. It's not like a squat when you're at the gym, up and down, up and down. You're just going down into a squat, energetically connecting that tailbone with the earth. How many people, I think grounding is kind of a big trend right now. Everybody's talking about, walking out on the grass and your bare feet and getting grounded. And that's another way that you can bring your earth element back into balance. Just walk outside barefoot. Just
And
connect.
Charlotte today in our Evolve meeting did a very nice tree root visualization as she was
Awesome.
talking about, she was talking about how to work through fear. So that was very good.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I like that.
Got a
Oh,
few
yeah.
of us there. So,
Yeah, it'll help. It'll help bring that. It helps you bring you some security and stability. Some therapies that you can try are colon hydrotherapy or detoxification. You can eat some of those root vegetables that Pam mentioned earlier, beets and potatoes and carrots, onions, things like that. Those are some ways you can bring it back into balance. And let's look at the next. Here is, and we haven't talked about the arts yet, but the arts for earth element are sculpture and aromatherapy. So I don't know if you can create a sculpture or maybe just go look at some sculptures, things like that. Just very earthy things that you can do, or aromatherapy. There are a lot of essential oils that can help bring you back in, into that earth element, bring that back into balance and really help everything move along. There might be some circumstances in your life where you don't feel secure or stable. So it might not be an overnight change, but you can work towards making the changes that you need to help bring some more security or stability to your life. And then the affirmation that we usually give is, I am a divine being of light. I am peaceful, protected, and secure. And then just knowing that you have the right to have, in a balanced way. We're not saying that in a way that, all you want is a bunch of things. It's just you have a right to be here and to have a secure and stable life. Any other thoughts on that, Pam?
The other thing I want to say is, I say this a lot, but as a student in the first level of Foundation Polarity, I can't tell you if I learned more about myself or more about being a practitioner. They were both enormous amount of learning taking place and about the same. So it was a transformation for me as a practitioner and also as a person.
Yes. Yes. And that's the key. It's, know thyself. The more you know yourself, you're going to know what your triggers are. You're going to know where those triggers come from. You're going to know what the traumas are and how to work through them. All of that brings balance back into your life, brings these elements back into balance, and really creates an atmosphere for health and happiness. So that's what we're constantly working towards as we educate the students, as we work as practitioners, in these community classes. We just really want to spread this information because we 100% believe that this is the answer to finding yourself, finding happiness and health. All right. Okay, so typically when we're in person, we hand out a survey to see what people would like to know about in future community classes. So maybe we can just kind of open it up here and you guys can share with us some sections of energy medicine that you might be interested in or would like to know more about. And we could put something else together. And then Pam's also going to share some of our upcoming events and classes. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you guys can talk while I do that. Anybody familiar with Reiki? We have a Reiki course coming up.
I know the term, but it confuses me. I've had it explained, but it's kind of like, huh?
Okay. Yeah, Pam can talk to that.
I've heard of it before, but I don't really know a lot about it.
So
Okay.
Reiki is you become attuned to Reiki, which means that you get the power of the Reiki in your hands through a process called attunements. And then when you work on someone, you can be at the head and send Reiki because it's going to go wherever that person needs it. Now, we do encourage you do move around the body, but you don't necessarily have to because it goes where it's supposed to go, where you need it the most. It is a channeling of energy. So you are just kind of like a person who is allowing that healing to occur. Where polarity therapy, I'm going to relate it to that because we just had that presentation. Polarity therapy, you are actually doing set protocols based on an intake of what element is out of balance, and that looks very different for each person. So if somebody comes to me and their water element is out, then I know that I'm going to choose from those elements or those protocols what I think is best for that client based on what they told me when they talked to me. And it might be that there's multiple elements out of balance, and then you've got to pick which one needs to be in balance or worked on first before the other ones can, kind of get into balance. So it's kind of like being a detective and talking to the practitioner and deciding, what you think they need, and then, going through the process of protocol. So they're very different. In Polarity, we have 3 touches. One is where it's a light touch. And that in my mind is very like a Reiki touch. And that's where the most healing happens, is when it's Savic. And then you have a Tamasic touch where you're almost kind of going, I'm sorry, you can't see, you're almost going into the body, and you might, move that energy from that block, which is more of a Jasic. So I like to think of the one Polarity touch where it's Savic, where the healing occurs, is like more like a Reiki touch. So that's my little 5-minute, 2-minute description of it. And they all have value, they all have a purpose, and it's all moving energy and to get the body back into homeostasis.
Right. And just, when somebody's lying on the massage table, just being able to get into that state of relaxation and to let everything, all of these energetic therapies are working down into your nervous system. It's working down into the cellular level so that your body can get into a state where it can heal. Our lives are so frantic and frenetic that a lot of times we don't take the time to get into that state. And, it just go, 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 go. And your body doesn't have a chance, even in sleep. I don't know how everybody is with their sleep, but a lot of times we don't get into that REM sleep and get to a point where we can start to let our bodies regenerate. So receiving the body work gets you into that space. A lot of times a practitioner may just be holding some space for you so that so your own body will heal itself. And then, releasing the energetic blockages. So it's just something, it is part of self-care. It's part of, you just have to, Dr. Stone. So a Dr. Stone quote is, if you want health, you have to work for it, just like anything else in life, like an education, like a career, like a family, anything else you're working for, but people forget to stop and take the time to work for their health because it doesn't usually just magically happen. We kind of have to take these steps and put together a plan so that we can get to our healing point. So yeah. So Pam, what are the dates for Reiki, which I love? I think Reiki is a great class to start with because it's only 3 days of class.
Yeah, so Reiki is going to start November 9th, and it is from 8:30 in the morning till 5:30. And then it's only on one weekend a month. So you meet 3 months. And then the next date is December 14th, and that's from 8:30 in the morning to 5:30. And the last date is January 11th from 8:30 to 5:30. And that course will get you to the Reiki master level, which a lot of times, I don't know how many people I talk to and they say, oh, well, I only received Reiki 1. Well, they don't have the ability to really do a lot as a Reiki 1. You really want to get at least might as well get to the master level. And the master level just is that you can now attune other people, and you get more of that power or channeling abilities in your hands.
So the
So
levels
that's
are,
the Reiki.
yeah, level 1, level 2.
Level 3, and then the level 3 is like the art attunement, and then there's level 4, which is the master attunement. And then if you accomplish all of that, and you will learn that in the 3 months. So one day for 3 months will get you to the master level. And then in order to be a master Reiki teacher, you just teach it once, and then you're a Reiki master teacher. And we will, as the instructor of the course, we will work with you if 6 months come by and say, hey, I want to teach a class and I need a refresher. I'll sit with you and help you. Any questions along the way, and it's free of charge. That's just what we do. So if you want to get to the Reiki master teacher, we're here to help.
Yeah.
So if I were to do the course here, so it's 3 specific days. In between, I mean, do you give homework? Is there like a schedule that you recommend? I mean, what does it look like in the continuity over the 3 months?
So I think, and I could be quoted wrong, I think without having the homework in front of me, I think you have to work on 10 people.
Okay.
Lucy, does that ring a bell?
That sounds right. Yes.
And please, I might be a little off on that, but there isn't an enormous amount of homework like there would be with the polarity therapy class. But I think you work on 10 people and maybe get 2 sessions from a Reiki master. And then I think then there's a distant, there might be a homework where you work this. When you do Reiki, you can do it distantly because it is energy. And the one thing we didn't dive into is quantum physics. And, Einstein, his theory of E equals mc squared is where he found that energy can be transferred to another object less than light. I mean, it goes around, it can transfer, what is it, like the speed of light times speed of light squared. So it's instantaneously that you can send that Reiki to somebody across the room, to another country, to another state. You do not have to be in that with that person. And that's what's so great about energy work. And Reiki, we do talk about that.
What about the individual ability? Like, do you have to have a talent for it or?
No.
Okay.
When you get attuned, you have that.
Okay.
So basically you're learning what Reiki is, and then you're learning the hand positions, and then you'll be attuned, and then you'll be able to practice Reiki. Any other questions about that? We do have, if you get to the point where, you go home tonight, I know it's getting late and you're tired, some of you have worked all day or had busy days. Next October 28th, is that next Tuesday, Lucy? In
Yes.
We're having another Zoom, and there's not like a set, like we're going to be talking about slides and all that. It's just ask us anything about the school. So that's next Tuesday. If you, but you can also reach out to me or Lucy and ask questions as well. But if you want to be a part of that, we're doing that. We are doing on November 8th from 10 to 5. We're doing a 1-day workshop in Columbus. This one it's not complimentary. I think it's a $275 value. And we're actually going to be doing some energy medicine protocols and teaching you some things. And I really don't know the complete curriculum on that. Lucy, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, so part of this is before you get to the class, you'll get access to an online course, which is the theory and science of energy. And that helps everybody get onto the same page, just like Pam was talking about quantum physics and quantum entanglement, things like that you'll learn before you come to the class. That we'll review that in the morning. And then you'll be getting an intro to reflexology, which is also working through the 5 elements that we just talked about this evening. And then after lunch, you get an intro to polarity therapy. And in both of these modalities, you're learning a protocol and practicing on other attendees of the class so that it's a very experiential, hands-on workshop. And there's just a lot of information packed into this workshop. So it's, like Pam said, 10 to 5, and we can get you all of that information. But the online portion of the class has a $350 value. So you're getting that plus your 1 day in the workshop with all of the hands-on protocols for the $275. So it's a really nice deal, a really nice package for everybody. November 8th. Yes.
And then January 17th and 18th, we'll start our next sound and vibrational therapy course. And I just got done teaching that. Was it last weekend or 2 weekends ago?
Yes,
I don't remember.
it was just last week.
We just had a ton of fun. And this is using sound and vibration to heal the body. And, we're all vibrating beings. Everything, even a rock, vibrates. And so it's finding those frequencies, and there's lots of great protocols where, you can heal unprocessed emotions that are in the biofield of the body. and bring those back into the body to be processed. Because what one event with two people at the same event, one person may process it okay and experience it and be all right, but another person, their body may not be ready to process that event, and it can get stuck in the body. And so this is a way of using tuning forks to bring that back into the body. It's about balancing chakras. We learn to do a sound bath. We learn a lot about sacred geometry and how it relates to the sound and vibration. And every organ of our body vibrates to a certain frequency, and just using tuning forks, we can get our body back into homeostasis. So it's a really fun class. That one's a little longer. That is Saturday and Sunday, January 17th and 18th, and then February 7th and 8th, and then again, March 14th and 15th. But it is a little bit more of a laid back class. You do have some homework, but it's not, there's not any tests or a lot of studying, but it is a great class. We had a blast. We had a lot of fun in that class.
That was great.
And then to round out, the end of 2025, many of you met Tiffany, our breathwork, trauma-informed breathwork person. And she's going to have a class that starts January 30th to, help people with trauma in the breathwork course. And I don't have all those dates sitting in front of me, but the date is January 30th is what I have for that.
Yeah, one weekend a month. It runs through the end of June. So yeah, I won't list off all the dates, but just to give you an idea, one weekend a month for 6 months. Yeah. And I think it's a good time to mention too, that all of our courses and classes are approved by the Ohio State Board of Career Colleges and Schools. So you're getting something, very weighty and foundational. And then we also talked about at the anniversary celebration that one of our student demographics is people who just want to learn these things to keep themselves and their families healthy. So, our first two demographics, maybe somebody wants to start become a holistic health practitioner, an energy medicine practitioner. That's the first demographic. Second is maybe they already have an established practice, or they're a nurse or a social worker or a licensed massage therapist. They want to add some sort of training or certification to their practice. But then that third demographic, that's why this information is just for everybody and anybody that just wants to keep themselves and their families healthy. Like I mentioned before, it's getting the information, it's having the tools in your tool belt to know, here's what I can do to help my family. I don't have to run to the doctor all the time. I don't have to be on so many pharmaceuticals. I can have some other options to keep us healthy.
And a perfect example of that is I laid my tuning forks accidentally on the coffee table at my home around the holidays. And my sons and other young adult people who were coming over, because my kids are young adults, they'd go over and they ring them and and they weren't messing around. They were serious, that they could feel the vibration of those tuning forks. And they would, where's the tuning forks? I want to, and they're doing it on each other, and it was just a lot of fun. So
It's fun
around the house.
Yeah. Awesome. All
And
right.
then other classes we have that are aromatherapy, polarity therapy, and we have multiple levels of polarity therapy. And what are the other in-person, Lucy, am I missing?
Relaxation massage. We already mentioned reflexology, Reiki, relaxation massage, aromatherapy, sound and vibration, and all the polarity levels. And then the breathwork courses.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a ton online too. So
Yeah. Any questions or thoughts before we hop off?
No, thank you for offering this information. I mean, a lot of this is new to me. I'm very new to this whole type of just, understanding and learning, and I love it. So thanks for sharing and just sharing the tools you already have for awareness.
and thank
Yes.
you all
Thank
for
you,
being.
Helen.
I really appreciate you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, through yoga, I like flow. I feel the flow of the energy, and then doing, when you do the guided meditation and you go through the chakras. So that's why I was very curious because I'm very interested.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because you can
Yes.
feel it. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You can feel it. Yep. All right. Well,
Anybody
thank you
else?
all. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you. It was very informative, and it kind of made me like go through my list of chakras and elements and question myself, am I off balance anywhere? And just looking at that from a personal standpoint. So it was very informative.
Thank you. It's so good to see you.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for being here, and we hope to see you again soon. Stay in touch with Pam. We'll probably do a follow-up, to stay connected, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Thanks
Thank you. You
again.
too. Uh-huh. Bye-bye.